Everybody, I'm Charlie Cummins. I own Phoenix Masonry Training Center. Here's my phone number, email address. Today we're going to talk about, we teach men and women how to lay brick, block, and stone. Alright? And today I'm going to talk about the re-entrees or ex-offenders that we have trained to be Masons, as well as displaced workers. Okay? To start off, we're going back to Detroit, 1997. I'm sitting in my training center, and the head of the parole system comes by. He saw the sign out front, International Bricklaying School. Okay, so he comes in and he asks me, he says, I want to know if masonry contractors will hire ex-offenders. Now, they call them re-entries now, but back then they called them ex-offenders. Well, this parole officer kind of caught me in one of my moods, and I told him, listen, a masonry contractor don't care if you have to rob a liquor store the night before to get gas money, so long as you're at work the next morning at 8 o'clock. Now the downside, all they want to see is you bent over and laying brick. Okay? But back then they were getting $32, $34 an hour. So if you're getting the money, you don't mind working. I mean, 97, that's when people were working in warehouses and stuff like that in Detroit were making $7 or $8 an hour. So if you make the money, you don't mind working. I'd say less than, not even 1% of the masonry contractors in the United States, if not the world, even have you fill out a resume, okay? Because they don't care if you built downtown Dallas or downtown Seattle. They want to know what you can do today, okay? So when you call a masonry contractor or whatever and you're asking for a job, they're going to tell you to go to such and such job site and see the foreman, okay? The foreman, he's used to people coming up, he's going to tell you, okay, get your tools and go build that corner or jump in the line up there and start laying brick. But one of two things is going to happen the first hour or two. One, you're going to get fired, period, because if you can't do it, you can't do it. You're fired, okay? And if you're there at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, then the foreman is going to say, what'd you say your name was? Come out here to the truck with me. And they're going to fill out a W-2 form so that you can get a paycheck Friday. That's the way the masonry trade is. I also want to point out that bricklayers and contractors, they're not prejudiced, not one bit prejudiced. They don't like nobody, okay? Until you prove yourself that you're a good mason, then you got a brother, okay? No matter what color you are, you're going to be invited to the home barbecues, everything else, So it's a good trade to get into. So, when people ask with re-entries, ex-offenders, make it, of course they will. Now, moving back to Detroit, I trained about 60 re-entries. To the best of my knowledge, 0 went back to prison. Okay, 0. Okay, and I know because they hung around they'd come by and see me after they finished training for a couple of years. They went all over the country. Most of them started contracting because this is a real easy business to learn to start contracting. Okay, so they all went to work. Now, moving along with this story, about 4 or 5 years ago, which would have been about, let's say, 2015, 2017, somewhere around in there. One person I trained was in California. They were going to get a job, trying to get a job teaching inside a prison how to lay brick, block, and stone. Okay, so they put me down as a reference. All right. So I got the name of the head of the training program for the prison system in California. It was a lady, I can't remember her name. And I called her and I was talking to her. Well, she was proud of the fact that in California, 75% of everybody goes to prison, goes back to prison. When they let them out, 75% of them are going back to prison. But however, California had been running these training programs for a couple of years, and they had enough information to know that only 60% of the people who had vocational training while they were in prison went back to prison. So that was a 15% improvement. She was real proud of that, you know. And I told her, well, Miss So-and-so, that's great. You know, not to be sarcastic, but, you know, 15% improvement, that beats a poking eye with a sharp stick, okay? However, I told her about Detroit and me training 60 ex-offenders. And so help me God, to the best of my knowledge, none of them went back to prison. And I told her, I said, you know, maybe you can help me, Miss So-and-so. Can you get a hold of the prison people in Michigan and just simply ask them, how many people did y'all send to International Bricklaying School? Because they paid me, they sent me a check for every one of them. How many of them went back to prison? Because I would like to know how many of them went back to prison. And she said, oh, no, Mr. Cummins, that's all classified information. They would never put, that's private information. We can't, no. It kind of makes you wonder how serious they are about fixing this problem, okay? So now, let's hit a little bit. Like I said, there's about 60 of them I trained, and none of them went back to prison. So help me God, to the best of my knowledge. Now let's talk a little bit about displaced workers. That means, you know, they shut the whole plant down, everybody lost their job, the job went to China or to Mexico or some other country, okay? There was a big steel plant in about 90, 98, somewhere around in there. 100-year-old steel plant went out of business. They fired everybody. Everybody's gone. Everybody lost their pension plan. They lost everything, period. They were screwed. I trained about 40 or 50. They were displaced workers. The youngest one was about 35. The oldest one was in his late 50s, okay? And a bunch of them had dual union cards. In other words, they had a union card from the steel plant, and they had a union, they were a union member, bricklayers, Detroit bricklayers, local, whatever. They did fire brick, okay? Fire brick masons as a whole, most of them can't lay brick in a wheelbarrow. All they know how to do is fire brick work. So some of them had been a union member, bricklayers union member for 40 years. And the union told them, sorry, we can't train you. Because they didn't know how to lay brick. They didn't know how to lay block. All they knew how to do was lay fire brick. When they shut a furnace down, they go in, tear the old brick out, and put new brick in, okay? That's all they knew how to do, okay? So I trained about 50 of them. They were some of the best students I ever trained, you know, because they were used to getting up and going to work every day. You know, they had good work habits, and in 200 or 300 hours, a lot of them went and got a journeyman bricklayer's card at the union, you know, because the union don't care. The only people that join a union now is people that was working non-union, and they go to work for go to the union hall, and a lot of the people I trained in Detroit, they didn't go and say, hey, I just got out of Charlie Cummins' school. They didn't do that because the union for some reason didn't like me, okay? But the union, they just go in and say, hey, I'm a bricklayer, I've been working non-union, if they even ask. The business agent, even back in the mid-90s, was tired of getting chewed out every day because masonry contractors calling, I need masons, I need masons. We don't have any, we don't have any, we don't have any. They're losing jobs because they can't man what they got. So they send you out on a job, okay? Now, 3 days later, the business agent comes out on a job, and he told them, hey, you got to get off the job or join the union. And they joined the union, and they gave him a journeyman bricklayer's card. Okay, a journeyman bricklayer's card. That beats a 4-year apprenticeship. In other words, they had 250, 300 hours. I trained them for 8 to 10 weeks. So 8 or 10 weeks beats a 4-year apprenticeship program. Do you agree? All right, and they got a journeyman bricklayer's card. You need to understand this. Bricklayers are not licensed, certified, this, that, like a licensed plumber, licensed electrician, certified welder, and all that. You can either do it or you can't. The better you do it, the more money you make. Okay? You take down south from here all the way to Miami. Every crew has a bricklayer, so-called bricklayer, block layer, making $20 an hour and making $60 an hour plus on every crew. It depends on how good you are, okay? Well, let's see now. That's pretty much it. I'm running out of time for this video here, so I want you to know that we start students every day. You move at your own pace. You'll stay until you lay 150 brick in an hour. 50 block, 8-inch block in an hour. Build all your leads, all your corner leads, straight leads. Final test is you build a 2-foot square brick, chimney, pier, whatever you want to call it. And you lay 100 modular brick in 2 hours or less. And you lay the same size pier out of block, and you lay 24 block in 1.5 hours. Now all of this work is jointed, brushed off, and rejointed. Perfect quality workmanship. When you can do that, and it takes, like I said, 8 to 10 weeks if you come 30 hours a week. You can do it a month and a half if you come 50 hours a week. You can come, you move at your own pace, okay? So if you're interested, give us a ring, subscribe to the, look on the deal and subscribe and all that, and we'll get, now as an extra bonus, I've got a book called The Secret of Squaring Up. I've sold it for 20 years for anywhere from $25 to $50. I'm going to give it to you free. All you got to do is ask. Ask and you shall receive. You will get this, my book, The Secret of Squaring Up. I get a lot of compliments from it. I tell stories about it. So, how I learned and all this kind of stuff. Very interesting book, okay? Not as good as Rich Dad, Poor Dad, but it's a lot of people like it. So that's it, folks. Till next time, thank you for listening. Goodbye.